Music titles. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, the play's The Thing, with your host, Judy Sleed. Special guest, Pat Gorman, famous artist and author. Underwritten by Taylor Cohen, Michael Knigan, Irv Ackerman, dear friend, Robert Fraza for Ashokan Talent. Now here's Judy.
Welcome once again to the Plays the Thing. I have a wonderfully talented person, Pat Gorman. I've known her for several years, and she does so many things. We just couldn't put all the things on the marquee or whatever you want to call it. If you ever get on the marquee, you would have to have an awfully big one. You're an artist, a writer, an acupuncturist, and all sorts of things. So let's start with your writing. You said you're a Native American, which is very interesting. What they call Native Americans here. Native American.
Well,
they
I'm
don't
not,
call you Indian, are you?
I think we mostly call ourselves Indians.
Do you? Really?
Yeah. I mean, well, I feel a little bit odd because I grew up in a tiny tribe of my own family in Whitestone, Queens. So I didn't get to experience tribal life. But my father was raised on the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota. He was born in 1907, and so that put him back at a time when there were still people alive who had been at Wounded Knee. There were still people who were alive that knew about Custer. And he learned many dances, ceremonies, and he would teach us in the backyard. But he would try, we had very tall hedges, and then he set up I remember he loved this sort of grape arbor that he made that would screen him off from my mother in the kitchen, because my mother would come out and she'd say, "You're not teaching that Indian stuff, are you?" Because she thought that was in the past and we should all just be Americans.
Was your mother Indian too?
No, my mother was predominantly Irish, but she'd been cut off from her family for marrying my father.
Oh my.
And so eventually they repaired that rift. But, I mean, my father was also an alcoholic at the beginning, which is a big problem for Native Americans. And, you know, so there wasn't just the race thing, but I think the race thing was very big in the olden days. And even now, I mean, and in Whitestone, I mean, there was a feeling when we were growing up that if anybody knew that you were really Indian, you'd get stones thrown at you. You would get beat up.
Is that the way you grew up?
Well, I grew up in Whitestone, yeah, in Queens.
Oh,
and so, you know, that was an Irish and Italian neighborhood, and as long as you were Irish or Italian, you were okay. But if you were anything outside of that, forget about it.
Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I come from a family of 6 kids. So when I say we were in a little tribe, we really were. And we would go out there, my father would teach us the dances, and one thing that was great was, he did not distinguish between men and women. The Lakota, he's Lakota Sioux, have a great respect for women. In fact, they have a woman who's almost like the version of Jesus, but it's a woman, white buffalo calf woman. And so they have an enormous respect for women in the tribe, and women achieve equal status as the warriors. So he would teach us things that normally, I mean, he would completely confuse what the boys and the girls were supposed to learn. So I learned things like the virtues. There's a ceremony of the virtues when you're coming of age, of committing yourself to living a life, but you pick your own virtues that you want to represent. So if I want to be honest, or I want to be brave, or I want to be, and then I think of someone that represents that to me, and I commit myself to being like them. So we would do things like that, but actually that's only a boys' ceremony. But lately I had a chance, the Unitarian Church asked me, would I, you know, the one down on the turnpike, asked me would I work with their young, early teen group and do something. And I thought, well, that's a great ceremony. You know, and we had a fantastic ceremony. We had the parents and the kids there, and I was very moved by the kids, because even though they weren't Native American to start with. Here they were, completely inside of the feeling of it. And I had this feeling when they were asking me, there's a big feeling among Native Americans not to share anymore because we feel like everything was taken from us. But I was raised not really in that environment. And I had this feeling, I just decided no more reservations.
No more reservations.
No more emotional reservations. And maybe there's a way that there could be no more reservations, that the land could be held for everyone in some other way. These are thoughts that I'm having, but I feel like I will teach these ceremonies. Not every Indian thinks this is a good idea. So I'm on a little shaky ground.
Well, this Indian does. And where I met you originally was in a writing group, and you were writing a book. And you told me that you brought a DVD instead of reading it in person. You want to show it because it involves, do you want to have an introduction before we see it?
Yeah. The DVD is about 3 minutes, and I'm doing it in the sacred circle on my property. We have a sacred fire circle. And I'm drumming, and I'm talking about, you know, Indian drumming is so boring. My father would be out there, he'd be teaching us the dances, and rock and roll was just coming into our lives. And this is a little story about asking my father about what it means, and him telling me. And I'm doing the drumming in the piece. And it's a little section from my book, so maybe we could have a look at
Combine
it.
the two. Okay, can we see the DVD, please? Oh, but that...
This is not the right one. This is not the right one.
This is not the right
There's
one.
2 on this thing, and it's, how do we
Oh.
tell them?
Okay, well, can you tell Saida?
Tell them that it's not the right one. Here we are again. Are we back on?
Well, I hope they find the right one. So in the meantime,
No, it's the second one. Can I just go out and tell them?
No.
I do that? Okay.
no. What I wanted to know is about, you were talking about your family. You have 6, and what place are you in?
I'm the second, and I'm the first
second.
girl.
You're the first girl. You had a
An
boy
older brother.
first, and then what are the other siblings
Then I
doing?
have a younger sister, a younger brother, and 2 younger sisters at the end. And the very last one and I have the same birthday. So
Oh,
we're like
that's-
sort of very
that's-
extended twins. That's how we think of ourselves.
Extended twins.
And it was really great growing up with them. I had to take care of them a little too much, but, you know, it was great.
When we first
And in the
heard
book
my
that I'm
dad
writing,
drumming,
I'm,
I think it's
drumming,
on now.
clapping, he did
Okay,
softly
great.
for us in the backyard. It was so steady and boring.
well, the
Rock
other
and
was
roll
from
had taken
Hurst, so I
Michael and me
suppose that
over.
wasn't the worst thing in the world.
And this
There were
seemed
just
so
2 pieces on
repetitive by
DVD.
comparison.
And we looked at the right
When
one.
did it change, I wanted to know. My father said, with no embarrassment, that it didn't.
So I'm reading it.
It could go faster or slower, but it needed to be steady. It was the heartbeat. Its beat calling to everything to establish harmony, to tune in together. Different speeds for different dances, meaning different things. I've been listening to my own heartbeat since I was a child. I was always aware of it if I tuned inward. The heartbeat has a second beat, a softer and then a harder one each time, I said, trying to make my point to my dad, trying for something more interesting. That's right, my father said with a nod of approval. That's in the step. The men in the middle, they do that little step hop on each leg. Step, hop. That's the heartbeat. And the women circling around the outside, their steps are like sliding. Step, slide, step, slide. That's the blood pulsing through the heart and out from the center. carried out to the body of the world, to all living things. That's why the dances work. Everything starts pulsing to the same rhythm. Everything gets restored to harmony. The beat seemed so real and powerful after that, though I still liked the wild freedom of rock and roll. And now the Huichols, in whatever is their way, are calling themselves and the world to balance. I stand for a little while all alone, an outsider. But I don't want to go back to the even greater separation of my room. A thought occurs to me, but I dismiss it. It's stupid. I squash it, but it resurfaces. No, it's inappropriate. Part of me says, do it anyway, even if I am all alone. And so, using my cane for support, and stepping gingerly with my swollen feet, I begin very slowly circling around alone on the cement roof in the dark, with the sound of Huichol singing in the background. Step, slide, step, slide. The rainbow.
Well, that sounded real interesting. So have you finished the book?
I finished the first draft, and what I found out is that two things. One is the first draft is the first draft, and you really have to write, you have to go through it again because you're a much better writer by the end of the book than you were at the beginning. So you have to go back and kind of rework it. So I mean, but the entire story is complete, and it's just a question of ironing out those bits.
Interesting. I hope you have a publisher.
Well, I had one offer already, but it's a small press, and it requires a lot of travel. I don't know if I can do that, because part of the book is about a genetic Native American blood problem that I have that started me on reclaiming my Native American blood. It's something, if you get salmonella poisoning, then your white cells get triggered and start trying to kill the red cells that carry the Native American antigen. So it's like having the war all over in your blood between the white and the red.
Wow.
And so that started me on my quest. I wound up living with the shaman in Mexico. And then I wound up trying to remember these things my father taught me. And so in the end, you know, this is bringing me back, and I'm finishing this book and it's wonderful, but I also have to deal with the difficulty that it gives me in my body. So traveling a lot, I don't know if I can accept this offer, because I don't know if I can travel for 6 months. You know, I have to do a lot of caretaking.
Well, maybe your husband is going to help you.
Well, but he has a big practice. You know, he's an acupuncturist, so you can't just abandon your patients. He would help me if he could. But I'm hoping to get a regular publisher, and I will travel a little out from New York City. That's what I'm hoping. And I'm in a group now that, well, I was in Herstory, and both of us worked there, and you did some wonderful writing. You should do some more.
I am doing writing, a different kind of writing, but I'm getting there. It was a good experience, but I'll just always remember how your story was just outstanding. It was so interesting. It was very different, yeah.
Thank you. Well, now 6 or 7 of us have started something we're calling the Oak Street Circle, because that's where we meet in Southampton. And we are going to put out a book of our stories, of short chunks of our stories.
Oh, you're gonna...
We thought we would go ahead and do that. In the meantime, while we're going to publishers and while we're seeking agents, and each story is so wonderful. Each story would be fantastic. I mean, there's one woman who grew up on a 50,000 acre cattle ranch in Australia, and actually, you know, cut the balls off the bulls and did all of those things, a real cowgirl. There's another woman who became part of a radical group that eventually...
I remember her.
Yes, eventually bombed
Yes.
banks and things, but it's really the story of how one becomes attracted to that. And I think this is an era when we have to begin examining what attracts someone to become a radical. And it's a great story. And then there are other stories too. They're all wonderful. So I feel lucky to be in this little group.
Yeah.
And we're encouraging each other to get everything ready and go out and find publishers.
Did you get this group together?
Well, I was one of the people, but Stacy Corti, who lives in Southampton and is a designer and a writer, and was the first person to get published in Herstory.
Really?
Her book is published. Decided that when our group was sort of canceled, that because we had sort of grown up and finished, and Erica is now very involved in Herstory and working in the prisons. She's working with different Latina groups, as well as just groups of women that are interested all over Long Island. She's done work with teenagers. She's doing wonderful work. But it wasn't for us because we'd finished sort of the process.
Yes.
And Stacy said, come and meet in my office, and we'll work together on
maybe
the new
I'll
stage.
visit your group.
Oh, that would be great.
Yes. So I see that you're also an artist. What do you photograph or paint or?
I'm a painter,
You're
and
a
I
painter.
was a designer for a long time in New York. That's how I made my living before I became an acupuncturist. And I set up a studio called Manhattan Design. And we did the MTV logo and the whole look of the MTV station when it was first born, I guess you would say. This is so I guess we're sort of famous for that. The studio I had was Manhattan Design, and I had it with two partners. This is the very first MTV poster that was on the walls of many a kid's bedroom. And you know what? This is 20 years old, but it looks a lot like the it looks
this
a
a
lot like
little-
some of the
put it
advertising
in
that's out
front of
today.
you.
Oh, can you?
Like
Oh,
that.
and there's the MTV logo there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's a lot like the
It's
iPod
great.
ads,
I guess
right?
a lot of people would remember this.
They would from their, and sometimes I fantasize. Right now, the iPod ads are using these kind of silhouettes and music, and I'm thinking maybe that kid had this poster on their wall.
Oh.
Maybe it got implanted in their brain.
Sure.
We did a lot of messing around in TV, early TV, making bad television, and this came from our childhood of, when color TV was just invented. Bring it up.
Yeah. Nice.
So
this
we did.
was
we
on
did a,
MTV also, huh?
Yeah, this is, we used to make little 10-second, 20-second station breaks. People who watched it in the early days probably remember the animations. And then we would do fun things. This is a poster fold out. We would send these things out, and people would put them together. Like here's a fold out car with some characters to put in it. And they
It
would
was a
take
game.
pictures of it and send it back. In crazy places. There was a lot of interaction with the audience. And then I began painting using my...
Okay, just one more painting, and then I want to talk about that other thing you have there.
I began
Because
to
we
do
could have a
posters.
whole hour show with you. You do so many things.
I began
Okay.
to use my posters for my paintings for the UN.
Oh,
And
wow.
this is
The UN.
This is one
This is for the UN?
for the UN, yeah. For their
What?
let's see, it's the celebration of the Day of Population, World Population Day, and it's basically trying to find a balance between ecology and population. So it's a great organization. I was really pleased to work with them, and I did a series of posters for them using my paintings.
And
Do you want to look at any more?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, a few more.
This was another one done for them.
This way.
This one was sort of wound up on a lot of kids' walls. It's that sort
Yeah.
of very sort of simple kindergarten art.
Wonderful, really wonderful. I didn't know all these things about you.
Well, see, these are the worlds collide. I sort of kept them separate. I kept my
Uh-huh.
acupuncture and Tai Chi life in one place, the paintings and the writing, everything. Now I'm kind of letting it all show.
Hang out.
Yeah.
All hang out.
All hang out, yes. So
So that's one more. And
This was
then,
a-
oh, look
this
at
was their anniversary poster for the UN. So it was sort of, paint the world kind of thing. And what's really nice about these is they go all over the world. They print them in different languages, and kids all over the world hang them, and they get hung in the room, like
So these
classrooms.
things, you have them on sale in stores or
No,
someplace?
no. The UN
In
just
US?
will send them to schools, along with packages of things that could be taught, about ecology, about world population, and I learned a lot of interesting things.
I'm sure you did.
Well, for
Wow.
example, in many countries, you can't talk about birth control, but a lot of women would like to learn about it. What they found is, in certain countries, you just better not say anything, but if the woman receives a high school education, you don't have to teach her anything. She figures it out for herself. So,
Now, what's that orange thing? It says chai.
oh, Chi generation. This is
Chi.
my
Chi.
partner,
Tai Chi.
Tina, and I. She's been my Tai Chi teaching partner for like 25 years. We're teaching Tai Chi and, can you see it? And Chi generation. And these are little handouts that we made.
Yeah. What is this all about?
Tai Chi is a slow-moving, very beautiful exercise, meditation, breathing, and there's a form to it, and then there's sword form. It's very beautiful, but not everyone has the time to learn it. It takes like a year to learn the form, and you have to be dedicated. And then once I had body problems, I realized that many people need something easier. And so I started to teach Qigong. Well, this is called Roots and Branches, Chi Generation. And there are ways
You're
of...
full of information.
Too much information?
No, that's wonderful.
This is like the easy form of Tai Chi, because,
Yeah.
but it's very deep also. You hold these positions, and you do certain kinds of breathing, just very deep, and in the diaphragm. There are movements sometimes of the arms that actually cause the breathing. So you would like inhale, exhale. And so after a while, you begin to really relax, and your arms move slower and slower. You can inhale more slowly. And then there are some physical movements, some walks. But the great thing is that you can come to an hour, learn a few things, and just take that away. You don't have to do 30 or 40 hours. So right now we're starting a weekly class on Fridays at my house. So I can't have too many people. We figure about 12 people.
Well, people who will watch this in Manhattan will call you. By the way, we are in the Hamptons. We live in the Hamptons.
And then at the Unitarian Universalist Church on the Turnpike, we do a once-a-month free class. So if anybody wants, they can phone up and find out about that. And it's wonderful to do it. It's like a gift, to be able to share that.
And now I would like to know a little more about acupuncture. Does it really work for people? Or, it must work, but how much does it help?
Well, my husband, who's an acupuncturist, Steve Flores, calls it the longest clinical trial in history because it's been going on, documented for about 2,400 years, 2,600 years. And probably longer than that, but it's been written about that long. There are different kinds. There are things like barefoot acupuncture, which is like emergency medicine. Stop the bleeding, get the person walking.
It's
Then
like
there's
walking on nails.
No. That's more shamanistic. Although some of this is a little shamanistic, but this is, there are different ways of doing it, and the way that fascinated me, and the one that I really love, combines issues that the body has, and the emotions, and maybe the mind or the spirit. And when I say spirit, I mean not something, but I mean something like your willpower, your love of life. That's what I mean by spirit. That you are ready to say, yeah, let's go, let's do this. And some people lose that.
Yes.
And can that be restored? Well, some people feel very beaten down by an illness. Does it come from the physical? Does it come from the emotional? And this fascinates me. So I like to work with people who have fairly complex problems, and we begin to unravel them. So I work with people with cancer, work with people who have, long histories of autoimmune illness. I had a big practice in Manhattan, but now I just have a very small practice out here. And I like to work with kids. You know what? I think working with kids is the biggest proof to me of how powerful this is. Because I don't use needles.
Oh, you don't?
No.
But your husband does.
Well, I use needles on grown-ups, but no, and we like
Oh,
to
you
treat
mean
the
on
kids
kid-
together. Because, it's really good if one person can be distracting the kid while the other person treats the kid. It works well. But you can use pressure on the points. There's something called moxa, which can be burned on the points. A little heat. I mean, you don't burn the skin. You just, there's a little herb that you put on it.
Well, pain is relative, you know that.
But this doesn't cause any pain to the children. And if there's a very phobic adult, I'll treat them that way too. And the kids change. We had a kid come to us who was autistic, fairly high functioning, but still, if you talk to him, he would just stand there like this. He wouldn't answer to his name. They didn't think he could read. He was in school, but they were going to transfer him to some, special thing because he couldn't function. He was like in the 2nd grade.
We have to
And
wind
anyway,
it up.
a year
Okay.
later, he's completely mainstreamed. And
Well, as I said, I'm going to have to call you back again because we ran out of time. I want to thank you for coming and sharing all these interesting stories with us. I want to thank my crew, my daughter Jill, who helped us out today with the camera, and all my underwriters. And this is to say goodbye to everybody. See you next time. We are going to have a lot of interesting people. And you must come back, Pat, because, there's so much stuff we didn't talk about yet.
there are a lot of
It
interesting people out there.
happened- Excuse me?
There are a lot of interesting people out there.
Well, you are one of them. I only have interesting people here. Only interesting people. Because, and this is very good for me because I meet a lot of interesting people. And like people like you, I know them for years, but I really don't know them. So,
Love me, and if by chance